So now you begging China after all that tough talk? See, this is what happens when you run your mouth and you forget that the world does not revolve around your ego. The Trump administration, the same administration that kicked off a trade war with China like it was a TikTok challenge, is now asking China, pretty please talk to Iran for us. Because now that Iran is threatening to close the Strait of Hormuz,
Donald Trump has been reduced to begging China to help him out in his trade war. Mr. Art of the deal, Mr. Standing firm that there was nothing China could do to get the tariffs dropped, is now begging China to help him out.
Breaking fucking news. Donald J. Trump right now asking China for help to talk to Iran. And Donald Trump be like, oh, I attacked you. And could you please don't close the Strait of Hormuz? It's very important for us.
So let me get this straight. So just a couple days ago, Syphilitic Sid said he was going to make a decision about bombing Iran in about 2 weeks. Then yesterday he decided, oh, well, we're not going to wait 2 weeks. We're just going to go ahead and bomb y'all up. And then he announced that they had bombed 3 sites, right, that had nuclear weapons, and then Iran.
Listen, if you're worried that the United States attacks China because China supports Iran and then everything's World War III, it's not going to happen.
Hey, besties. Imagine spending years trash-talking someone, cutting off their resources, slapping them with sanctions, and trying to ruin their reputation, and then one day, showing up at their door asking for a favor. That's literally what the US is doing to China right now. With Iran threatening to close the Strait of Hormuz, one of the most critical oil routes in the world, America is now, wait for it, asking China to step in and calm Iran down. Yes, the same China they've spent years demonizing. The irony is so loud, it's deafening. So today, we're going to break this all down. Why is the Strait of Hormuz so important? Why is the US panicking? What role does China play in all of this? And most importantly, why should China even help a country that's been pushing it into a geopolitical corner? Let's get into it, besties.
Donald Trump has been reduced to begging China to help him out in his trade war. Mr. Art of the deal, Mr. Standing firm that there was nothing China could do to get the tariffs dropped, is now begging China to help him out. Take a look at this. China should open its markets to USA. Would be so good for them. Closed markets don't work anymore. These are not the words of a man that is standing his ground, that thinks he has all the cards in a trade war. Those are the words of someone who is begging, hey man, I know I started this, but please, let's get out of this. This comes after he already has suggested that tariffs should be dropped to 80%. But of course, he wouldn't say it was up to him, even though he's president. He's leaving it up to Secretary Bessent to do it, so he doesn't have to take responsibility for caving. Donald Trump knows he is in a position of weakness. He has no cards in this game anymore, and he is desperate to get out of this without looking like the loser that he is.
so now you begging China after all that tough talk? See, this is what happens when you run your mouth and you forget that the world does not revolve around your ego. The Trump administration, the same administration that kicked off a trade war with China like it was a TikTok challenge, is now asking China, pretty please talk to Iran for us. Because now that Iran is threatening to close the Strait of Hormuz, and guess what goes through there? Oh, baby! That stuff that makes your gas light turn off and keeps the economy running. Yeah, that oil. So now we need China. This is the same China that Trump called a threat. The same one that Pompeo tried to sanction into oblivion. Now y'all circling back like an ex who said they were done, but they had to come back to the house because they left their charger. If I was China, I'd be like, sure, I help. As soon as you get rid of every dumbass sanction and tariff that you've put in place. Because why would I lift a finger when you disrespected me and boxed yourself into a corner? But that's what happens when you write checks with your mouth your ass can't cash. Now look at you, broke, desperate, and back at the doorstep of people that you claim you would never need again. Pitiful.
The Strait of Hormuz is the world's most important oil choke point. Around 20% of all global oil, that's over 20 million barrels per day, flows through this narrow waterway between Oman and Iran. It's essentially the main artery that keeps energy prices stable and economies functioning. If Iran follows through on its threats to shut it down, the entire global oil supply chain could collapse. Prices would skyrocket. Economies would tremble. And guess who would get hit the hardest? Yep, America and its Western allies. And let's be clear, Iran has made these threats before. But this time, with escalating tensions in the Middle East and Washington's continued involvement in regional conflicts, Tehran might just be serious. The U.S. Navy is already scrambling in the Persian Gulf, and oil markets are already reacting.
Breaking fucking news, breaking fucking news. Donald J. Trump right now asking China for help to talk to Iran. And Donald Trump be like, oh, I attacked you, and could you please don't close the Strait of Hormuz? It's very important for us. You literally just attacked Iran, and you wish Iran didn't do anything, because Donald Trump at first expected that Iran wouldn't do anything and just surrender and talk to Donald J. Trump. But Iran was actually in a very solid stance and didn't listen to Trump, and Iran actually officially announced that they will actually close the Strait of Hormuz, like block the Strait of Hormuz. So, which is like very risky to the United States of America. So Donald Trump be like, oh my gosh, and he has no way to deal with this, and he's turning to China and asking China for help. Hey China, could you just talk to Iran? I didn't want to make a situation like this. Hey China, please talk to Iran. And the situation right now is kind of like this. Dude, this is like much more interesting than the goddamn fucking Hollywood movie.
So let me get this straight. So just a couple days ago, Syphilitic Sid said he was going to make a decision about bombing Iran in about 2 weeks. Then yesterday he decided, oh, well, we're not going to wait 2 weeks. We're just going to go ahead and bomb y'all up. And then he announced that they had bombed 3 sites, right, that had nuclear weapons. And then Iran said, no, you didn't. No, you didn't. Stop lying. There was nothing there, right? You didn't bomb anything of value. Then Iran said, okay, how about we just shut down the Strait of Hormuz? I didn't even know nothing about that. But apparently that is the port, the waterway, where the most of the oil that is comes through the Middle East, right? So Iran said, we finna shut that down. Now, today, little Marco, called China and said, hey, would you mind talking to Iran and telling them don't do that, because we gonna need that oil, because our gas price is about to be sky high. Now, all the maggots that always be in my comments and in the comments of other creators talking about, woohoo, Syphilitic Sid, he knows what he's doing. Oh, he's so tough. He's this, he's that. All of those things. He's everything but smart. You would think that if you were going to do that, like you should have asked somebody, if we do this to them, what can they possibly do to us? And, we're not just talking about the fact that they could bomb us, whatever. But, what are all the implications? Oh, but you don't have no real Secretary of Defense. You don't have no real generals, because, you fired all the people that had sense. And now they're talking about the possibility of sleeper cells, and your director of counterterrorism is 22 years old and was working at Target somewhere. He was a grocery clerk, Winn-Dixie. Piggly Wiggly, hell, I don't know. I'm just saying. So for all the maggots that was talking about, when he gets in office, let me change the voice. When he gets in office, he's going to lower the gas prices. And, all you libs, we're going to own the libs because he's going to bring down gas prices. Well, them gas prices about to be higher than a mother. High. Sky high. Yeah. I would enjoy the moment but that means my gas is going to be sky high too. So all that bull and the rest of us got to suffer with y'all. This is at the point. Well, I'm going to need y'all to wear y'all red hats in public, so we know exactly who to blame for this bullshit. Anyway, good night.
Here's where the plot thickens. Despite its global military presence, the US is quietly turning to China, hoping Beijing can talk Tehran off the ledge. Why? Because China has maintained solid diplomatic and economic ties with Iran. In fact, China is Iran's largest trading partner and a major buyer of its oil, despite US sanctions. But let's pause and appreciate the irony. For the past decade, Washington has gone out of its way to antagonize China. Sanctions on Chinese companies and tech firms. Tariffs meant to start a trade war. Blacklisting Chinese officials. Propaganda campaigns painting China as a national security threat. And let's not forget the US trying to isolate China from global trade and tech networks. And now, the very country they've been demonizing is their best shot at avoiding a global oil catastrophe. You can't make this up.
Every American needs to know this. China is more willing and capable of helping Iran, but they're not as buddy-buddy as the US with Israel, at least not yet. In the past week, I watched a lot of Chinese professors and scholars talking about the Iran situation. There's a lot of dramas. Iran, America, China, Iran, America, Iran, China, India. Long story short, China is the largest trading partner to Iran, but just not there yet. They're not that close to buddy yet. Point is, here in America, you need to know we have a choice. We don't have to go to war with Iran. It's a little bit too late, but you need to know. You don't have money for healthcare and you got money some bombs to some other country. It doesn't make sense. I don't know about you. I don't want a World War III. And get those countries sit down and negotiate. Okay? And don't just unconditionally support one country to support Israel. That does not make sense. Okay? You're supposed to give your dad and your mom are supposed to give you unconditional love. Other than that, in international relations, no country should support one country unconditionally. That just does not make sense. All right. And those people, whether, I don't know, CIA or whatever, those intelligence people, they know there's a good foundation in Iranian society. Still view America favorably after all this. Why don't you work on that? Work with Iran. Why do you have just one-sided support some country? And
the U.S. didn't get China wrong. The U.S. got America wrong. And this isn't about politics, it's about culture. And you can go deeper at culturalperspective.com. For decades, U.S. leaders believed that if the West traded with China, open markets, shared technology, and welcomed them into the global system, China would gradually become a democratic nation. The U.S. thought capitalism would bring democracy. The U.S. thought capitalism required democracy. It does not, because there are other forms of government that work just as well with capitalism. And it should not be a surprise that China never wanted to become like the U.S. any more than the United States wants to become like China. China wants to be Chinese. America wants to be American. This is a shock to Americans because they genuinely believe everyone wants to be just like them. They believe that freedom is the ultimate goal, but freedom is not a universal focus. Culture matters. Chinese culture doesn't worship freedom. It values harmony, balance, stability, continuity. So while the U.S. exported open markets, free speech, China filtered ideas, maintained control, and planned for the long term. The U.S. thought individual values would override collective values, but China's system thrives on collective duty and a national purpose, not self-focused and often selfish individualism. So it's not surprising that capitalism didn't change China, but China changed capitalism. Because despite the fact of what America thought, this was never about democracy versus meritocracy. It's about freedom versus harmony. And seeing what's happening in the US and what is happening in China, I think harmony is the better course. What are your thoughts?
Let's talk sanctions, besties. Over the years, The US has hit China with waves of economic sanctions, targeting everything from Huawei to semiconductors, to military research institutes, to investment funds. And let's be real, none of this has worked the way Washington hoped. Instead of crippling China, these sanctions have pushed China to become more self-reliant and more determined to build parallel systems. Chinese firms are building their own chips, expanding trade routes with the Global South, and even brokering peace deals in the Middle East, which the US couldn't do after decades of trying. Now, the sanctions are biting back. Because China doesn't owe the US anything, and they definitely haven't forgotten how they've been treated. So the question is, why would they help?
There's this thing going on right now where a lot of people think that China buy a lot of stuff from US and US is the biggest consumer of the world, so everybody needs US. But that's not true. You see, this number is only on physical goods. You know what US is good at? And they are the best and the most greediest of all is export of digital stuff. Digital means news, it means technology, it means influence. And that's a $1 trillion industry. It's ridiculous. We buy so much software and ads from United States, from all the world. Like, this is why Google, Facebook, all these companies dominates. And second, there's something called the bond. So we don't talk about this because it's Wall Street. So we don't talk about Wall Street. What is bond? Bond, think of it as a way of, and this every single company, or sorry, not company, company and every single country buy this from United States of America, Wall Street specifically. What bond is saying, hey, buy this piece of paper and we'll give you money guaranteed. Great deal, right? But that is a bet against the US economy. That US economy will do really well and it's a guaranteed payout. You know what country buys a lot of US bonds? Every single country. So that's the biggest export, okay? So US is depending on that. In fact, Wall Street is depending on that. And that's why recently, I'm pretty sure someone on Wall Street said, hey, our bond market is going crazy. Our interest rate is going crazy. And US dollar is going down right now. Stop it. Stop this trade war for a bit. We need to figure something out. This is not working as expected. And then some people say like, hey, maybe if the US dollar would depreciate so much, we'll bring on a manufacturing job back. How much do you want to decrease it to? And if it decreased that much, we're just going to automate. Automation will happen without any influence, really. It's inevitable. We're in, the deep end of industrial revolution, and everything is being automated. In fact, most of our white-collar jobs are being automated. So that's a huge change with the recent AI technology. And it's happening everywhere. So manufacturing and automation are just going to go skyrocket everywhere. So we're not getting labor jobs coming back. A labor job is not coming back, or we're not going to create more of them. Because, just think about it. Nobody wants to do labor job, to be honest. Nobody wants to work at a sweatshop, okay? Nobody. Okay? So I don't know where this trade war is going. And if there is even a trade war, we're trying to do something that doesn't seem feasible. And it's a time for all of us, not just US, not just China, but all of us to think about what we're gonna do when automation is coming so fast and it's gonna change all of our lives. And we need to think about that.
Breaking news on how the table has turned. After Trump bombed Iran, Iran is now threatening to close the Strait of Hormuz, which will skyrocket gas prices and lead to a global recession. Now USA is panicking, and they decided to beg China to play diplomacy here and talk to Iran because they are allies. Did I hear that wrong? China. Yes, the exact China that America has slapped a 150% tariff on. And also the exact China that America has been calling peasants 2 months ago. So why on earth will China do anything for America? Now, watching this news as a Chinese person is insane because I know my people are petty. So the audacity of Trump's administration to ask China to step in now, it's crazy. It's just like you bully someone for months and now you have caused trouble with someone else and you ask the person that you have bullied before to help you. We all know that is going straight to voicemail.
Let's not forget the trade war that started under the Trump administration and quietly continued under Biden. The U.S. slapped hundreds of billions of dollars in tariffs on Chinese imports, claiming it would bring manufacturing back to the U.S., shrink the trade deficit, force China to play fair. Spoiler alert, none of that happened. Manufacturing didn't come back. The trade deficit with China is still massive. And China didn't bow down. It diversified, invested in Southeast Asia and Africa, and kept moving. Meanwhile, American consumers and businesses ended up paying more for basic goods. And yet, here we are years later, with the U.S. needing China's diplomatic muscle to prevent a full-blown oil crisis. The audacity is breathtaking.
The U.S. shamelessly seeks assistance from China, aiming for 2 Trump cards in China's hands. The Americans can no longer bear it. They are desperately trying to visit China because these 2 Trump cards could save them. Will we save them? If you like it, keep reading. Recently, the U.S. national debt has surpassed $28 trillion and continues to grow by billions every hour. Moreover, foreigners want to restore the economy through new infrastructure, which adds to the national debt. However, the U.S. now can only maintain 3 months of fiscal expenditure with its emergency funds, and the financial crisis might erupt. A U.S. debt default would not only impact the American economy, but also shake the global dominance of the dollar America's visit to China. It's due to the first Trump card. They hope we will continue to purchase their national debt as we did before to alleviate their crisis. But will we still buy it now? The second Trump card involves cowboy products, electric bicycles, and so on. Chinese-made goods are being snapped up. 9 out of 10 Americans buy Chinese products. Currently, only China can produce goods normally, while other countries are suffering from the pandemic. Domestic products and entering the U.S. market can reduce domestic prices, ensure order in the American consumer market, and mitigate inflation caused by the dollar. Thus, the U.S. is clingingly trying to visit China, hoping we can buy its national debt and provide more low-cost goods. However, they are not coming with sincerity, while uniting other countries to pressure us, calling for dialogue from a position of strength. They simultaneously sanction Chinese companies while seeking our help. Do we agree to this? Therefore, we should maintain strategic determination, focus on our own affairs, and wait quietly for the complete outbreak of the U.S. economic crisis. Sitting back and observing the decline of American hegemony, what do you think? Follow me for more financial insight.
Listen, if you're worried that the United States attacks China because China supports Iran and then everything's World War III, it's not going to happen. Because the thing is that the United States will never directly attack China, and China will never directly attack the United States. Because the thing is that both countries are fighting for the #1 spot. If both countries fight directly, both of them loses. They will fall down the ranks by a significant amount. And some other countries, maybe a third, fourth, will be the top one. And both the United States and China does not want this. Look at all these kind of countries. All the countries that are fighting right now are the small and mini countries. They're all proxy wars. The 2 major powers in the world are not fighting. There is a reason. There's a reason why they're powerful. There is a reason why they're smart. One thing that they agree on is to make sure no other countries gets the #1 spot. It's either the United States or China. That's it.
Now here's the twist, besties. Despite everything, China might still help. Why? Because it serves their global image. China wants to be seen as a responsible global power, a peacemaker, and a stabilizer in a world full of Western chaos. And helping ease tensions in the Strait of Hormuz gives Beijing serious diplomatic clout. It also reinforces China's new role in the global order, not just a factory of the world, but a geopolitical powerhouse with influence across continents. The U.S. may see itself as the global leader, but moments like this show that leadership is slipping. This situation also exposes how deeply interconnected the world is. You can't isolate a country like China, try to sabotage its economy, and then run to it when the house is on fire. But here we are, watching the very country that was excluded from Western-led conversations step in to prevent a disaster the West couldn't manage alone. If this isn't a masterclass in geopolitical irony, I don't know what is. America spent years trying to push China out of the global power circle, only to come running back when the oil taps are about to be shut off. The lesson here? Be careful who you burn bridges with, especially when they control the fire hose. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more deep dives into international drama, economic plot twists, and political hypocrisy. And let me know in the comments, should China help the US? Or let them feel the heat? Adios, besties, and stay woke.